Good morning, everybody. Jan Hicks of Jan Hicks Creates here, coming at you with a little demonstration of the different counts of fabric that people tend to do full coverage pieces on, and how the stitches look: one strand, two strands, tent stitch, full cross stitch. So I'm doing this as a way to decide what fabric I want to use for Farewell to Anger, the stitch along that is going to be starting on January 1st of 2020. These are the little swatches that Heaven and Earth Designs provides. You can order them. Carol and Zook, Zook Stitches, ordered these and sent me some samples as well. She ordered for both of us. So I thought I would show you guys what everything looks like. So these are all Easy Grid. The one with the gray lines on them are the Easy Grid, the pre-gridded fabric from Heaven and Earth Designs. I also have a 25 count magic guide here. I'm actually not going to use this for the demo. The only difference between this 25 count and this, they're different companies that make it, and I don't remember which is Weigert and which is Wichelt. These two 25 counts should be the same, right, as far as the count of fabric. The only difference is that the magic guide gives you 20 stitches in their grid as opposed to 10, and I know already that I'm going to be working with one of these, the 10 gridded one, just because it's what I'm used to dealing with. It's what I'm used to thinking about. Now, having said that, I am not 100% sure I'm even going to get pre-gridded fabric. I stitch on the diagonal. You've seen me do that with my fractal and with my Santa Fe decor one. So I am stitching across a row of 10, just a 10 across, going down on the diagonal. And so I don't have too far to travel in order to park my stitches. So the pre-gridded fabric isn't as important, although there are times that I think it would have come in handy. So for me, a large part of this is just deciding what count of fabric I want to use. I usually stitch over one on 28 count. It is what I am very comfortable with, but I am also starting to think that 25 count might be the way to go as I start working on these projects that are going to take years. My eyesight is going to change over the years. It might just be smart to go ahead and use the 25 count, but this will give me a good feel for it to see if I like it or not, since I am so used to the 28 count. I also have 32 count here. I doubt very much I will be using 32 count. Over 1 on 32 will be a challenge as time goes on. However, I do have it here to to try out and see what I think of it. And also, a part of this is showing you what the different stitches look like on the different counts of fabric, the single thread, the double thread, all that. So I'm going to start with my 25 count, basically the easiest. There's all kinds of little ends on this that I'm rubbing off. So I'm just going to start with, let's see, I'm going to start with a 10 stitch. I'm starting with 2 strands. So 2 strands tent, 2 strands full cross, and then 1 strand tent, 1 strand full cross on 25 count. Got that? So I'm not going to do anything fancy to start with. I'm just going to put the floss on down through and hold it. And come over here, make sure I'm on camera, and start the 10 stitch. So again, this is 10th stitch with 2 strands, and I am going to do a couple rows with each. I already have a cat hair in it. And because this is so easy to see and there's no other threads getting in the way, although it just caught on the edge, I am going to use the sewing method to start with for the 10th stitch here, because it will go faster. Now you'll see I am doing the 10th stitch as opposed to the half cross stitch. So my stitches are coming up in the bottom right, going down, or bottom left, excuse me, going down in the top right, and then I skip over to the left, going up in the bottom left, and down in the top right. So going back across, doing the 10th stitch isn't quite as easy going from left to right, but it is, well, I say it is doable, and then I kind of struggle using the sewing method, that is. Mostly because going back this way, you're going into stitches that have, you're going into holes that have stitches already in it. So I know a lot of people use the 10th stitch, 2 threads on 25 count. I have to say I'm not super thrilled with the coverage of this on the 25 count. And I know that there have been people, I have seen comments from people about how 10th stitch has a tendency to warp their fabric. And I guess I could see that in that you're kind of, you know, it would have a strong pull, although you would think going back the opposite way would pull it back in the opposite direction. But over the course of a full big piece, I just don't know if you would end up with warping or not. Like I said, I have heard people say that that happens to them. So I'm not, I mean, if you're at it, looking at it from a distance, it's not too bad. And of course the stitches get filled around in it, and it wouldn't be too bad, but it just seems to me there's more gaps there than I would care for. So the next 2 rows, I don't know whether I'll do the full 10. I'm going to do the full cross. Like I said, I don't know that I'll do the full 10 just because it will take so long. And actually, I'm going to go because I am just using the same color floss, I'm going to go out and back. I don't know whether that's really faster. Probably just in my mind it's faster because it's what I'm used to. So it is, well, for me it's Wednesday morning. Wednesday the 23rd, 8:17, 72 degrees, and a gorgeous sunny day. I don't know whether you can hear the birds tweeting or not. For you, it's going to be Friday at some point when this goes live. But I did want to take the time to get this done before the boys get here. They did get off okay out of Orlando. They arrived into LA. For me, it was about 5 a.m. when they got into Orlando, or excuse me, into LA. And they left there about 6 a.m. So at this point, they are a little ways across the Pacific. They still have a good chunk of their flight left to go. Mike did go into work this morning, and he will be coming home early, of course, for us to head down to the airport. So here's something to think about. Look how much faster that 10th stitch was. Now granted, I was doing the sewing method, which is always faster anyway. Will I be able to use the sewing method when I'm doing my big project? Probably not. I will have it in a Q-snap of some size. And I could loosen up the fabric so that I could possibly do the 10th stitch or do the sewing method, but oops, that one's off. God, I forgot I'd already done those ones. God. So, you know, I could maybe, but I think it'd be harder to do the sewing method with it in a Q-snap than it is in hand. So, well, the 10th stitch is simply faster just because you're only doing one leg. I don't know. I mean, it would still be faster. I don't really care for the coverage that I'm seeing. Now, one of the things I haven't said that I wanted to say is I don't really want to work with 2 strands. I'm going to go back here on this row. The 2 strands is certainly, on this full cross stitch, is certainly much better coverage. I'm going very fast here, so my X's aren't necessarily all that great. And of course, the holes are starting to get filled in more. So the X's don't have as much room to spread, I guess. They just aren't as nice looking as I would like them. I don't even think I'm going to try the 1 strand 10th stitch on the 25 count. Just because if I don't like the coverage of the 2 strands, I'm definitely not going to like the coverage of the 1 strand, right? So the 2 strands is certainly very full coverage. To me, it seems very full. But I'm somebody that likes lighter coverage anyway, rather than the fuller coverage. I don't know. I'm going to just cut off one of these strands and continue doing the full crosses in 1 strand. And see what I think of that on the 25 count. This is what I usually do on the 28 count, right? The full cross 1 strand. So I would be surprised, and I feel that's more than adequate. But I will be surprised if I feel like the 1 strand on the 25 count is enough. But you know, I think I've heard of people that say they like the 1 strand on the 25 count because it's not quite like 1 strand on the 28 count always feels like it's like too much. And I have to say, let me get my fractal again. It almost gets to be like a padded rug on the back. I don't know whether you can tell how thick this is. in places, but it's quite a dense piece of fabric once you get all the stitches on there. And that's on the 28 count. So actually I don't think I'm gonna mind that much on the 25 count. Like I said, the one strand tent, you can see it's pretty darn sparse. Now that's a half cross, not a tent, but still, it looks basically the same on the front. Do you ever wonder how these stitches got their name? Half cross I understand, but continental and tent, those are basically the same. Gotta wonder how they got their name. I'm sure there's some smart person out there in the needlework world that knows that kind of information. I'm going to go across again if my thread will allow me with one strand. Kind of having to lean over the top of my phone here so I can keep the fabric in the camera but still see it. So yeah, I talked to the boys a little bit this morning in between their flights. Ben, well, they got to the airport in Orlando at 4 this morning. So none of the eating places were open yet in the airport. So they weren't able to get any food to take on the plane, and I was worried about that. Like I said in my floss tube video yesterday for you on Tuesday, Ben is now a vegetarian, but he also has the same gluten allergy, gluten intolerance that I have. And so the airlines, I mean, no airline carries gluten-free food unless it's just the peanuts. So he survived on peanuts on the 5.5-hour flight from Orlando to LA. And then they only had, like, I guess by the time they got off the plane in LA, they were boarding their other flight. And so they didn't have time, even though, you know, they were on their flight a half hour before takeoff. They probably could have, you know, gone to find something to eat. But they didn't want to take that chance. You know, the flight was boarding, so they went ahead and got on board. So they're on United the whole way. So yeah, Ben's going to be starving by the time he gets here, basically. All right, so I do like the over 1 and the 25 count. I think my stitches are neater. Of course, stitches are neater anyway with one strand as opposed to 2 strands, right? But, yeah, it just doesn't look as, well, of course it doesn't look as bulky, Jan. It's only 1 strand, but I do like it. I think that could work. And I don't feel like there's a lot of fabric showing in between. I tried to pick a fairly dark color of thread, so it would show up well, and any white would show through. So that is the 25 count. 28, I already know what 28 count looks like, you know, 1 strand on 28, and I am perfectly happy with it. Now this is a 28 count Lugana, I believe. This definitely has a different feel to it. I don't know what the base is of this. I'd have to go and look. But you can, excuse me, I think you can see that the individual threads in the fabric are a little bit plumper than in whatever this is that they use, that Heaven and Earth Design has for the Magic, or the Easy Grid. So these holes are a little bit more open. So let us see. I'm going to start with, again, with the 2 strands of and do the 10th stitch. So again, 28 count, easy grid. Two strand tent. And again, since I am stitching in hand and it's a small piece, it is easy to do the sewing method, at least going this way. So my friend here, Christina, is working on a Heaven and Earth Designs, the frog prints. I think she got the mini, so it's just like the center of it. It's looking so good. But she started with full cross on 28. And now I don't remember whether it's one thread or two threads, actually, that she started with. But she switched to 2 strands tent. And you know, you can't even tell the difference of where she switched unless you really get up close and look at it. And you would think, you know, that you could see some difference. And if you get up close, you can see that there is a thickness difference, but for the most part, you can't even tell. It kind of surprised me. Like I said, I don't remember how many strands she did the full cross with, whether it was 2 or 1. So the 10th stitch, 2 strands, 28 count. It's looking pretty good. There's still some gaps. But again, I really don't want to do 2 strands. You know? It just doesn't look as neat ever to my eyes. And of course, I'm not being super careful. Did I do a full cross on that? No, I didn't. All right. So I am going to start the full crosses on here with the 2 strands, just so you can get a feel for what it looks like. For this, are you noticing, let me do it again, pull this out a little bit, go back down through. Oh, now it's not going to. One of the things, if you remember my the video I did where I talked about the different needle sizes and how to know when you want to go up a needle size, that one time when I went down through, my thread kind of curly-cued as it was going down through. Now, of course, that's how you get knots easily, but it's also a sign that you want to go up a needle size. And I have to say, I can really feel the drag on the threads as I'm going up and down through the holes. So even though this is a smaller count fabric, I think I would need, I'm using a 28 now. I think going up to a 26 would be a good idea if I were going to do this. Whoops, see, there you go. If I were going to do this, simply to open up the holes so there isn't as much drag. I mean, I don't know whether you can hear. And we always hear somewhat of that, but it just seems, it seems more to me. I can feel that there's more wear and tear happening on the threads. Okay. So yeah, that's all I'm going to do with the 2 strands. I didn't like the 2 strands on 25 count. I'm definitely not going to like them on the 28 count, right? And even the 10th stitch, I mean, it's okay. but I'm not in love with it. Again, when you get further away from it, which is what we're going to be for these pieces, it's not like we're going to be looking at them like that, right? It looks okay. But again, that whole 2-strand, let me cut off again the other one of the strands, and do the single strand. The single strand tent on here and see what it looks like. And I am going to keep it just right up next to what I've already done. I don't know whether that's good or bad, quite frankly, but now my gut says that this would be too little of coverage. And I could see how it would pull. I feel like those few stitches, the reason I pulled back that way is I feel like I was pulling too tight, and that's what's going to warp your fabric. You know, if you pull so it's just kind of laying on the fabric, not that you're like cinching it. That's what you want to do when you're making your stitches. So yeah, I'm actually not minding this too much. Do I want to just stick with 26, or I'm sorry, 28? Well, I'm going back this way, you can see it's more open. Now, like I said, I am not wedded to the idea of getting the pre-gridded fabric. And if I don't, I can get one of the even weaves. Of course, I think this is Lugana, so maybe this one is a Jobelin. I don't know. You can just tell that it's closer together. That the thread they use, the yarn they use to weave it is plumper. And so if I use this, I mean, you can tell one strand on this is a little sparse. Hold that thought. Of course, maybe one strand on the plump is going to be too sparse too. We're going to give it a try because we have it here. All right, I'm just going to do a couple rows on here. Whoops, wrong way. That's not where I want to go up. On here of the tent stitch, single strand, because you know, tent stitch, it really would be faster. Use less floss, all the things, right? This is a much softer fabric to work on, whatever it is. It's still looking pretty sparse though, isn't it? But Jan, you have 32 count. Can you imagine doing 32 count single strand tent on one of these huge pieces? You know, that would just be the kind of thing I would do, isn't it? That's the kind of insanity that I do. It'd be smaller, and for this piece I actually do want it to be a fairly good size. Farewell to Anger, I mean, because it is such a stunning piece of artwork. All right. Yeah, kind of sparse. All right, so there's that experiment done for those ones. Now, let me rethread. I am not, now Carolyn, Silly girl that she is. I think in my video on my floss tube video on Tuesday, I had said, you know, that I wasn't going to do over 2 on the 32 count, you know, 2 over 1 on the 32 count, because there's just no way, right? I already know 32 over, or 2 over 1 on 28 is way too bulky. There's no way. And she's like, oh, you mean you don't want to try that? No, Carolyn. That may have been a dare, but no, I don't want to try that. So let's just see what the 10th stitch and the full cross, how difficult it is to do on 32 count, and what it looks like. I tell you what though, as quick as this goes, it really makes me wonder if I should try, and if, you know, if I'm doing it on 32 count, it would be a smaller piece of fabric, so maybe I could do it in hand. Don't you like how my brain works? It's kind of scary, isn't it? I think that would work. It would make the design or the project go faster, wouldn't it? I really don't like going back the other way. I know I could turn it upside down. All right, let me do that. All right, so Continental 10 stitch on 32 count. Yeah, I think that could work. It's still a little sparse looking compared to some of these other things, but not too bad. Let's do some full crosses. And see what we got going here. So yeah, Ben is going to be pretty much starving by the time he gets here. So bring him home and get some food into the boy. Starving and probably so tired. He said he was going to try and sleep on the flight, you know, get a lot of sleep. I'm like, good luck with that. I don't know about you guys, but I can never sleep. You know, you can't really recline very much at all anymore. And they're in like basic economy, so their seats are smaller. Now they're both fairly small guys, you know, very skinny. But they're, yeah, smaller seats. I don't think they recline as much. And I can never sleep on a plane. So it'll be interesting to see. Of course, having to get up at whatever time they did to get to the airport. They left their respective apartments at 3:30 in the morning, so to get to the airport. Yeah, I'm really not liking the full cross on the 32. I think if I do this, the way to go is going to be the 10th stitch. So what do you think? Tell me what experience you have, if you've ever done, if there's anybody out there that's done a full coverage on 32 with tent. Tell me what your reactions were to it. My most comfortable is the 28 though, still. The 28 full cross. Not 2 threads. The 28 one strand tent isn't too bad. It actually doesn't look a whole lot different. Just bigger, right? Anyway, guys, okay, I haven't had breakfast yet either. I hope you found this useful. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know, like I said, what experience you've had with these. It's also a good way to see what the difference in size is, huh? Yeah. Love to hear your feedback on all of this. I will put a link in the comments, in the description of where you can get the samples from Heaven and Earth Design if you want to give this a go yourself. But that is all for me. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, and I will talk to you, after the boys go. So, until then, have a great one. Bye-bye.